Hi Professor, my name is Fahad and this is tutorial number 2, focused on interaction design patterns and shapes in XR. In this prototype, I designed a transition from a 2D Figma interface into a fully immersive AR style experience using interaction triggers and state changes. And just to clarify, I'm not wearing the headset for this demonstration, just to demonstrate the interaction logic is going to be inside ShapeSR. Also, the Porsche 911 is one of my favorite cars. So to start off, we'll start at the entry state. Here I imported my Figma design showing the Porsche 911 Carrera in yellow. This represents a familiar 2D interface similar to a website or a product page. According from what I've read on the textbook, immersive experiences should usually be gradually introduced, um, especially to avoid cognitive overload when it comes to spatial complexities. So first, I kind of intentionally started with the flat UI. It's familiar to most people. Kind of looks like a website. It gives them some spatial anchoring and low cognitive overload. This board slightly it's kind of angled, and instead, sorry, the board is slightly angled in the space instead of completely flat. This helps to introduce some depth without overwhelming the user. On this page, on the next page, when the user presses this button over here, we will see that the 3D car appears in the space, and this is an event driven interaction. The user performs an action, and then the system responds. I added this and then linked it to the visibility of the kind of 2D model. Also, we see the green button here. That's also for the next frame. So one of the challenging things was scaling. At first, the car seemed really small. An incorrect scale, as we know, it reduces presence. So I adjusted the model to match realistic proportions as much as I could without using the VR headset. This interaction between all the frames kind of demonstrates a progressive reveal. Instead of immediately placing the 3D object in the environment, the user kind of has to request it. This kind of creates a sense of kind of increases the agency, and agencies kind of strengthens the immersion. And this is what kind of I define as for the second state, the spatial introduction. The user is still grounded in an interface, but now this kind of 3D exists in their space. After on this page, once we kind of press the large button, the green button is pressed, the experience transitions into the immersive mode. The 2D board becomes kind of a secondary, and the 3D card now becomes the primary focus. This kind of represents state transition. We move from passive, like browsing, to active spatial engagement, um, as well as I tried to make sure that there's a clear visual hierarchy and reduced clutter. Um, this is because now the entire state becomes augmented reality, and the car actually feels like it exists inside the user's physical space, wherever they are. If they're on the street, if they're in a dealership, if they're in a garage, the car will exist in the physical space for the user. Um, and they have to kind of press the button to make the state change, and environmental kind of gives them a response. This is kind of the cause and effect relationship, is central kind of to immersive interaction design. Bit of a reflection here. This tutorial kind of made me think more about real world scaling, spatial anchoring, clear state transitions. The biggest lesson for me here was kind of about the transitions. It's not mostly so about the objects, it's about the choreograph and how we move the users between states, different states, to make sure that they feel the presence. Also, choosing something I like, which is the car, kind of helped me make the prototype feel more intentional and uh, engageful. Overall, this project demonstrates how a familiar 2D interface can transition into immersive spatial interaction through useful and thoughtful interaction design patterns. It connects both traditional UI thinking with the XR principles that we kind of discussed in class. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.